Last time we spoke about the Aron Kodesh, and we are on page 448. And 448 begins the description of the Shulchan, which is the table in the base of Mikdash. Now, we spoke about the idea that the Shulchan, which is the table, and you have a picture of it over there, it looks very, very tall, because those are really the, what he calls over there, the shelving tubes and the pillars, whereas the Shulchan is really that middle part, which is, if you look on page 449 in the picture, it's really that middle part, which is an amma and a half high. An amma and a half is about, let's say about 24 inches, 26 inches, something like that, whatever an amma is. The word amma literally means an arm. So depending on how long your arm is, you know, the average arm is probably 18 inches.
So whenever they were building this, did they do it by average?
They did it by an amma. It could be they had a specific, an amma is 6 tvachim. An amma is 6 tvachim, and a tefach is a fist. And they're 6 tvachim in your arm, from finger to finger, depending on, I told you Spencer Haywood, who played in the NBA, had an extra digit on his finger. Spencer Haywood, who most of you have not heard of, and a perfectly useless piece of trivia. Spencer Haywood had, besides being 6'8", so his hand was bigger than mine, he also had on each, though you have 3 digits over here and 2 on your thumb, right? He had 3 digits on his thumb, and he had 4 digits on each finger. I actually read his autobiography when I was about 17, and he called it his secret weapon. So he could put his hand around a basketball about the same way you could put it around a golf ball, so or maybe a baseball. But you know, it was like it was just ridiculous. So Spencer Haywood's amma is probably longer than most people's ammas. But the amma is the table is an amma and a half, which is about what we're calling let's say 24 inches, 26 inches, whatever the amma is. Now let's read the psukim, because there's a remarkable idea contained here. And you have to see it in the words of the pasuk. Torah says like this: "V'yasiso shulchan atzei shitim." You should make the shulchan of acacia wood. Amasayim orko, 2 amas long. The amma rochbo, 1 amma wide. The amma v'chetzi komoso. Page 448, 7 lines from the bottom. So you make it an amma by 2 ammas by 1.5 ammas high. Now we spoke last time about the idea that the table, the shulchan, represents prosperity. That's why the bread is on the table. And that the prosperity, in the area of prosperity, the height dimension is a broken dimension, which indicates that we are supposed to see ourselves in the material realm as complete when it comes to our own needs, and incomplete when it comes to spending on Shabbat. Remember, we spoke about that. The idea that when it comes to spending on a lulav and an esrog and on tzedakah and buying your wife a dress for Yontif, Mr. Fogel, which you have to do. The halacha is that you have to buy your wife a new outfit every Yontif. If that's a halacha, it's a deoraisa. It's a halacha deoraisa. You have to buy your wife a new outfit every Yontif. I'll tell you the stores that have good sales. What do you call it? Binyamin will pay attention carefully. And you have to, you have to buy her something. You can buy her a shaitel if you want, whatever she's happy with. A shaitel, which only costs a couple $1,000, you could buy that, or you could buy her a new pair of shoes, or you could buy her a diamond.
Is this being recorded?
This is being recorded, unfortunately. Yes, this is being recorded. So, but that's about all it's being. It's certainly not being put into practice. So the what do you call it? That is what it talk about spending on Sorchei Shemayim. You will get to a point in life where you have to spend money on tuitions, day school tuitions, which because day school teachers also need to eat. Your average tuition in the East Coast of the United States in day school is probably about $12,000 to $14,000 a year per child. In California, my cousin in California was paying for his daughter in a Jewish high school. $32,000 a year was the tuition. So I said, sure, because they give you a tuition break and they only take $18,000 on the tuition break. That way, he said, nothing doing. He said the tuition, he got a tuition break and he pays $28,000 a year for his daughter's tuition. He said it costs him more to send her to school in LA than it did to send his other daughter to seminary for a year in Israel, which also costs a lot of money. It also costs a lot of money. So day school tuitions is because we're paying for our children's Torah education, and the person has to be willing to pay for Torah education. So all these things, that's what's represented by the height dimension, which is a fractional dimension, which means that when it comes to spending on God's needs, so to speak, what God wants from us, so we should not be we should not be chintzy. That is the idea. Now, let's go on because there's another idea here. But see, pisos azov Torah, you should coat it with gold. Ve'asisa lo zer zahav saviv. You should make a golden crown around it. Now, the word zer and the word zar means a stranger, a non-Kohen. Is anybody else here besides myself a Kohen? You are a Kohen. Oh. So I'll have to split Terumah with you. Okay. All right, listen, there's only one of you. But those of you who are not Kohens are called a zar. You are a stranger. That means a zar is not allowed into the Beis HaMikdash. And you are called a zar. That's a stranger. A non-Kohen is called a zar. A Kohen is called a Kohen. A crown is called a zer. And you should make a zer around it. You look in the picture, you see there's a little squiggly over there on the table. You notice where it says zer, crown, which is why that's why it says it. And there's an arrow pointing to a little squiggly thing, which is the crown that goes around the table. Now, what do you think is the symbolism of this crown? What do you think the crown symbolizes? We'll see in a second. Let's read one more pasuk. Ve'asisalo mizgeres tofach saviv. How does he translate it? You shall make a molding of one handbreadth all around. A mizgeret in modern Hebrew, mizgeret is a frame. A picture is framed in a mizgeret. Ve'asisa zer zahav lemizgarto saviv. You should make a golden crown for this frame. Now, the idea here is like this. If the table represents prosperity, the word mizgeret, which comes from the Hebrew word soger, lisgor, to close, and you've got a frame around it. What does he call it? A molding. I don't like a molding. I like a frame. You make a frame around it, and the frame is called a mizgeret, which comes from the word soger, and it's got a crown on it. What do you think the Torah is alluding to? What do you think the Torah is alluding to? What's that? Torah always, there's a crown, the crown of Torah is Yaron Kodesh. The shulchan represents prosperity. That's the showbreads on the shulchan. That's what those shelving tubes are. What's that? Royalty. Okay, the shulchan represents royalty. What is the ultimate? What's your name? Benjamin. Oh, wow, we got a lot of Binyamins, and there's another Binyamin. I think we have 4 Binyamins in this room.
Oh,
6 Binyamin.
In this room we've got...
Bernie, what's your Hebrew name? Dove. Okay, that's what I thought. So there's a Binyamin over there, and you two are Binyamin, and I'm Binyamin. That's my first name, is Binyamin David. So we had another Binyamin here, right, Ben?
Yeah, Ben Shearer.
You're Binyamin David? I was Binyamin David before you. So, and I'm a Kohen. What do you call it? So we'll have to share, which is not my strong point. In any event, so Binyamin says like this: it represents royalty, which is true. The Torah is royalty. Royalty always is prosperity. The king had to be wealthy. The king was wealthy. It represents prosperity. What else? What is the sign of royalty in Judaism? The crowning achievement in Judaism.
Crown.
A crown is the crowning achievement. That's certainly true. You wear a crown.
In Judaism.
Yeah, what's the crown? To what? To keep the people fed. That's one of the jobs, is we have to keep people fed. We'll see about that in a second. The crowning achievement of a Jew is, what's the difference between being a king and being a slave? When you're a slave, you're controlled. A king does the controlling. Paro was a king. He controlled the Jewish people, controlled the land, basically controlled the world. A king is somebody who is able to rein in his desires. The king, the crowning achievement is that if the table represents prosperity, and we spoke about the length and width dimensions being that we should see ourselves as complete, we have our needs, then if the table is the length and width dimensions represents prosperity and I'm happy with what I have, the crowning achievement is to control myself. In the area of, remember we once spoke about the word lechem? Lechem means bread, right? Bread represents all prosperity as it does over here. What's the root of the word bread? Lechem. What's that? Chaim is a different word. Lechem, what word is related to lechem? Milchama. Milchama is a war. Milchama. Lechem, lochem is to battle. Lechem and lochem. Lochem is the exact same words as bread. Lechem and lochem is to battle. The ultimate battle a person has is the battle with his physical desires. In bread, food is one of the biggest battles that we have, and most wars are fought over food, and that's the connection to food meaning prosperity. Theoretically, wars are fought over, we want the territory because it'll be more prosperous for us. And therefore, lechem and milchama are related because the battle of the individual is in self-control, especially against food. You want to hear something remarkable? There are two physical battles, physical drives that man has. We have a lot of drives. We have ego, we have selfishness, we have, control, power. Those are intangibles. Even money, to a certain extent, is an intangible because nobody wants money for what money is. People want money because of what money gives you. Money gives you ego, and money gives you power, and money gives you control. Money is not a physical drive. There are only two physical drives. One is the drive for immorality, and the other is the drive for food. I shouldn't call it immorality. I should call it the drive for procreation, because if used properly, it is proper. It's not immorality. Those two drives, the drive for a male's drive for either women or for food, those are the two physical drives. We don't have any other physical drives. There are no other physical drives. What's the physical drive? Food, eating and drinking, and procreation. Those are the two physical drives. Remarkably, turn back for a second to Parshas Vayeshev. On page 214, take a look at 8 lines from the top, Posuk Vov, on page 214. Now this is talking about where Yosef is captured. Yosef is in the house of Potiphar. Yosef is in the house of Potiphar. Now look what the Torah says over here. Potiphar is enchanted by Yosef and he trusts Yosef. And then on the 8th line, look at the last 2 words on the line. It says Vayazov. Everybody see that? If you see it, please show the person next to you. Sorry, 7 lines from the bottom. 7 lines from the top. 7 lines from the top, second word from the end of the line. If you find it, please make sure the person next to you has it. It says, Vayazov kol asher lo biyad Yosef. On page 214, Potiphar leaves everything that he has in the hands of Yosef. V'lo yoda imo me'uma. He didn't supervise anything over Yosef. Ki im halechem asher hu ochel. Only the bread that he consumes. Now take a look at Rashi over here. What does it mean, the bread that he consumes? Rashi says, it's in the right column of Rashi, second line at the end of the line. Right column of Rashi, second line at the end of the line. It says, Ki'im halechem, says Rashi. The only thing he withheld from Yosef is the bread that he eats. Says Rashi, Hi ishto, that refers to his wife. It's a euphemism for his wife. The Torah talks in a refined manner over here. Instead of referring to it as the wife, refers to it as the bread. But it refers to the wife. So you see that bread, both on a physical level and on a euphemistic level, bread refers to the two drives that we have to fight against, that we are lochem, that we battle against. So now turn back to page 448, and you see that the crowning achievement for man is to be able to control himself and make a mizgeres, make a border of some sort for his desires on the bread, on the shulchan, which has the bread on it. I was once at a bus stop here at Orsabah. I was at the bus stop out of here. I was on the way home. I got to the bus stop and I was sucking in a candy. One of the other rabbis in the yeshiva was there. So I walked over. I said, I had a candy in my hand. I said, would you like a candy? So first he said, yeah. And I said, yeah, no. So I said, well, you can take it. It's kosher. He said, yeah, I assume it's kosher. I said, so why don't you want it? He says, well, just because I have a desire something doesn't mean I have to indulge. Which was a completely foreign concept to me. And I just, my reaction was, oh yeah, sure, me too, But the just because one has, when is the last time in life somebody offered you to taste something that looks good, you said, no, I don't want to taste it. Right? Somebody made something, especially if it looks creamy and it looks good. You want to taste this? It's new, root beer strawberry flavored goop. Oh, wow, that's my favorite. I can't wait. Well, why not? Why not? Only for one reason. Just because I have a desire doesn't mean I have a satisfied desire, which is a concept that is absolutely foreign to us. You know that there's a rabbi here in Yerushalayim. He walks around, this rabbi, when he gets into a cab, he carries a wooden board with him. Now again, I'm only telling you a level. We're not there yet. He carries a wooden board with him, and whenever he takes a cab, he doesn't want to enjoy the lush, plush seats of the cab. He sits on a wooden board. So he shouldn't have the plug. Now when I take a cab, I enjoy the lush, but if it's a Mercedes, my day is made. In Israel, they run around a lot of Mercedes. Those are good cabs, and I play with the electric thing that adjusts the seats to get my comfort level just perfect. Yeah, there are levels to strive for in life. There are levels to strive for. The Vilna Gaon was on a level where apparently he did not chew. He chewed his food the bare minimal amount necessary to take pleasure out of it, and then he swallowed it before to minimize his pleasure. Because there are degrees of self-control. We're not on that level yet. When I eat chocolate cake with frosting, so I make sure not to taste it. I chew it the bare minimal amount of times, especially if I have some corn chips on the side, whatever it is I'm noshing on Shabbos, just to work on my self-control and not taste the corn chips. But there are levels in life. That's what the Torah is teaching you over here. That's the first crowning achievement. Now, take a look at Pasuk Chavav. V'yasisa arba taba ozav. Should make 4 rings of gold. Page Chavav. Now you have to see the what do you call it? You have to see the words inside, because there's a phenomenal insight here which does not obey the plain meaning. It says v'asisa lo arba tabos. You should make 4 rings of gold. V'nasata es hatabaos al arba hapeos asher la arba raglav. You should put the 4 rings on the 4 corners by the legs. Then it says like this: Le'umas hamitzgeres. Now, how does he translate le'umas? It should be opposite or facing. Okay, the ring shall be opposite. Very good. Le'umas hamizgeres, opposite the border. Tiyena hatabos shall be the rings. Levatim, as enclosures. Levadim, for the poles. Los seises hashulchan, to carry the table. Okay, now I want you to listen very carefully. You pay attention very carefully. The plain meaning here is that you put rings over there. You put the poles into the rings, as it shows in the picture, and that will carry the table. Okay? Now, a person, the word bad in Hebrew, bad, or livad, means what?
House.
Livad. That's a bayis. That's a bayit, a bayis. What's livad? Alone. Livad or livad means alone. Who is the most lonely person in the world? A depressed guy. Who else?
God.
God is not a person. Who else? Who?
King.
A king is, it's lonely at the top. There's an expression, it's lonely at the top, but he's a happy lonely, right? What else? Who else is a lonely? Somebody who's not married it could be lonely, right? Till he gets married, then he'll see how much he wishes to be lonely. But theoretically, yes. There's a remarkable statement the Gemara says. The Gemara says a man who's not married is without peace. Because he's without blessing, he's without this way. It says he's without shalom. Man who's not married is without shalom. That's a very puzzling statement, Mr. Fogel, because I know what it was like. Things were like before I got married. Now things were like about 10 minutes after I got married. I had much fewer fights with my roommate in 4 years than I did with my wife in about the first 20 minutes of marriage. After we were already, she was already giving it to me because I was joking around with the photographer. She didn't like it. I was making faces at the photographer. That was our first spat. We hadn't even walked out of the chuppah yet. It was already. And I didn't care much for the photographer. And she was like, and then when you're married in the first month of marriage, you think they're having trouble in Syria? The first month. Are you kidding? Right. So I don't know. What does it mean? What does it mean? They what do you call it? What does it mean? I'm not sure which one of us was the rebels, though. But whatever it is, yeah, are you serious? Right? The answer is that shalom is not the absence of fighting. When you're with a roommate, I don't owe you anything, you don't owe me anything. As long as you don't wash your hands too loud in the morning, wake me up, we're fine. Shalom is where there is something you have to overcome in order to create peace. That's what real shalom is. Here, the Torah says, the loneliest person in the world is a poor man. Nobody wants to see a poor man. When you see a poor man coming towards you, usually go in the other direction because they probably need something. He wants money. That's usually what happens. The Gemara says, there's a verse in Mishlei, I don't remember the exact verse, it says, the wealthy man has many friends. Right? A wealthy man, everybody likes the wealthy man. The poor man has very few friends. And even the family members have trouble with the poor man because they're always calling him up, he needs something, he needs a loan, he needs some money. The poor people are very, very lonely. Wealthy man, everybody's hanging around the wealthy man. Wealthy man walks into the room, everybody's quiet, everybody listens. Wealthy man talks, everybody laughs at his jokes. Everybody listens carefully to what he says. People have a sense that a wealthy man, maybe some of him. If Warren Buffett would come walking into the room right now, everybody would be silent. Now, he could tell me the same exact thing as an Israeli cab driver. But him, I want to hear. The cab drivers know how to fix the economy, by the way. They know politics, the economy, they know everything, right? But he's driving a cab. But Warren Buffett, if he came into the room, everybody, what's he got to say? And then there's always that inner hope that he's going to suddenly turn and say, and I like you, right? You know, and he's going to pull you in to be vice president of his company. So, a wealthy man has many friends, a poor man is alone. So the Torah says like this, you know what a ring is? We spoke last time about how a ring represents an endless circle. And we spoke last time about how the rings on the Aron Kodesh represent the endless, so a ring is endless. You go around a ring. The rings on the Aron Kodesh represents Torah, and the rings on the Aron Kodesh represent the endless reward for somebody who studies Torah. What we're doing right now, we're studying Torah. There's endless reward for us in the world to come for every word of Torah that we learn. Whether it's a shir, whether you're learning Gemara, whether you learn Halacha, it doesn't make a difference. Every word of Torah, there's endless reward for the Torah that you learn. What about your table? Your table represents two things. There's my own prosperity. What's a Jew's responsibility? Jew's responsibility is to give. Jews are always givers. Whether they give to the right cause or not, Jews always give. Sometimes it takes a little bit to get it out of them, but Jews give. Every organization in the world, there's a Jew behind it. True or not true? Doesn't matter what the organization is, there's a Jew. Jews give. If you're smart, you give to good cause. You give to yeshivas, you give to poor people, you give to the teachers in yeshivas, whatever it is that you give to. But if you're not smart, so you give it to wasted causes. A guy, I remember a Jew gave $10 million to the Ohio State University so they could build a new culture wing. Which just means more rooms to do drugs. That's all it means. You know, they're neither cultured nor they have wings, right? You know, so what? You know, the $10 million. Can you imagine? He could have given $10 million to the Mir Yeshiva, and instead, or to Or Samach, and instead he gave it. He wasted money on Ohio State University for a new culture wing. So you have to have the zuchus. You have to have the merit to give to the right places. But Jews give. Jews give. In a story, the rabbi gets up in shul. He says, "Listen, we have to build a new extension to the shul." Or, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be building a new extension. Shul, and I have some good news and some bad news. The good news is we already have the money. The bad news is it's in your pockets. So, one way or another, and he's going to get it out of those pies. Somebody just told me recently, fundraisers don't leave the house till they have a check in their hand. You know, first get your foot in the door, and so Jews give. Jews give to everything. The Rambam says there's never been a Jewish community that doesn't have a tzedakah fund. There's no Jewish community that doesn't have a shul. There's no Jewish community that doesn't have a mikveh. There's no Jewish community that have a school. Where do they get the money from? A bunch of people can't even finish. And they're building, in my neighborhood alone, they're building, I think, 2 or 3 new shuls for guys who can't afford to finish the month. One way or another, you start and the money comes. So I told you about the lawyer. The guy, the Jewish United Appeal calls up this guy and say, "Hey, Goldstein, you know, our records show that you're making more than over $850,000 a year, and we haven't gotten a donation from you." So Goldstein says, "Oh yeah? Do your records also show that my brother's a disabled Vietnam vet? Do your records also show that my sister's a widow raising 4 kids on her own? Do your records also show that my mother is in an old age home? And if they couldn't get a dime out of me, what makes you think you will?" So, you know, at the end of the day, Jews give. I'm sure Goldstein ended up giving by the end of the phone call. Goldstein gave. So the Torah is telling you like this. Poverty, there's a statement in the Gemara like this. The Gemara says that poverty is a cycle that goes around. Now listen carefully what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, a man can be wealthy, but his children may end up being poor. And his children may be poor, and their grandchildren. His children could be wealthy, grandchildren may end up being poor. There are no guarantees in life. A man could make money. It says, poverty is a galgal. Remember we spoke about the word of galgal? A circle. Hachozer ba'olam. It's a circle that constantly recycles itself in the world. That's what poverty is. Therefore, the Torah says, you know what? You have a table at home. You've got prosperity. Just keep your eyes on those 4 corners. There's a ring over there. You want to get caught in that ring? You want to get caught in that circle? It could come to anybody, and it could come to anybody's children. Make sure you donate from your table. Make sure you bring the poor people into your home to avoid that cycle of poverty. Hashem pays mida keneged mida. If you provide, you'll be provided for. It's a merit for you. It's a merit for your children. Stay focused. I'll get to you 1 second. Stay focused on those rings, number 1. Number 2, and if you do give, you get endless reward for the tzedakah that you gave. You get endless reward for the tzedakah. Yeah. Your name is?
Chaim.
Chaim, go ahead.
I was just wondering, so if it says shulchan, that's specifically having guests at your house, but tzedakah is not included in that? Or tzedakah?
Of course it is. Of course, it's only because the shulchan is the most basic form. In the old days, people were literally hungry. People were literally starving. So the guy came in and he gave him food in your house. It refers to any form of tzedakah. Take a look at the pasuk. Now I want to show you how the words read in the pasuk. Okay, take a look again at 3 lines from the bottom. Last word on the line. Leumas hamisgeres, opposite the border, tiena hatabos, livatim, they should be a home, livadim, for the lonely people. Remember, bad is a lonely person, a poor man. Make your home open for the lonely people, laseis es hashulchan, because that will carry your table. That means a person wants that his prosperity should remain. So the Gemara says, one of the most ironic statements of the Gemara says, melach mamon, if you want to salt your money. What does salting mean? Preserve. You want to preserve your money? Choser, decrease it. Exactly counterintuitive. Like I say to you, you want to do well on your biology test, study less. Does not make any sense. You want your car to drive a long way? Put in less fuel. Does not make any sense. You want your money you want to preserve your money? Decrease it. It's exactly counterintuitive. It goes against all of our instincts. Why is that? So I'll explain to you how money works and how God works when it comes to money. They talk about a guy goes into the post office. He wants to mail a package. So the guy puts it on the scale. He says, it's too heavy. You're going to have to put a few more stamps on. He goes, yeah, but if I put more stamps, I'll be even heavier. Right? So it's counterintuitive, right? Yeah, but they're not sending your package unless you put more stamps on. Now, how does money work? It works like this. God, we are meant to see our money and our resources as being entrusted to us. God has poor people in the world. He wants those poor people supported. He's giving you a chance. You have a chance to support the poor people. If God loves the poor, why does he support them himself, right? Why do he make them poor? So the Gemara asks that question. Such a good question, Chaim. The Gemara asks that question. Right? You know what the Gemara says? So that we could be saved from Gehenna by helping the poor people. What's the obvious problem? Why don't we ask the poor people what they think of that? Oh, that's great. I'll be poor so that you could be saved from Gehenna. Nobody checked with me. Nobody asked me about that. So the answer is obviously that the poor man deserves, for whatever reason, whether he's a reincarnation or whether he did Averas, whatever reason, the poor man deserves to suffer. Now, there are a lot of ways to suffer in life. The poor man could be ill. The poor man could be in pain. He could have aggravation from his children. But God says, you know what, I'm going to do you a favor. And by doing you a favor, it'll be a benefit for everybody else. Instead of just wasting it on you alone, I'll do you a favor. You're going to get out of your punishment or whatever suffering you have to get. You're going to get that by being poor, as opposed to being ill or aggravation from some other way. That will give other people the opportunity to have a merit by supporting you. And everybody benefits. Now, the way it works is like this. You've heard that there's a mitzvah to give 10% of your income, right? You guys would give 10%. Jews give 10% of their income. Okay, you could give up to 20%. You have up to 20%. Unless you are fabulously wealthy, in which case you give more. What constitutes fabulous wealth? I don't know, and I would like one day to have to ask that shaila. I would love to go to a posek and ask him, am I now in a position where I am fabulously wealthy and I could give as much as I want? I'm still waiting for. I've asked lots of questions about milchik spoons falling into fleishik pots and forgetting to say yalav yavo. The next question I'd like to ask is, does my wealth constitute fabulous wealth? We're still waiting to get there. So the halacha is, if you're fabulously wealthy, you can give up to 20, you could give even more than 20%. Now, the way it works is like this. Let's say you make an average salary, you make $100,000 a year, okay? An average salary in the United States, $100,000 is not a lot of money, especially if you're paying day school tuitions. So you make $100,000 a year, and a guy, in spite of he's earning $100,000, he gives away $10,000. Religiously, he gives it to tzedakah. So God says, look, that's great. I like your attitude. And the next year I'm giving you another $100,000. And the guy again gives $10,000 away. God says, you know what, you're pretty good. You've got a good track record. I'm going to try, let's see how you handle this. And he gives him $200,000 the next year. A rich uncle dies, he gets an inheritance, something happens, get $200,000, he gets a promotion, $200,000. His stocks go up, he's got $200,000. He gives away $20,000. God says, you're good, gives him $200,000 the next year. And again, he gives away $20,000. God says, you know what? You've earned the right to be tested at a higher level. God gives him $500,000 the next year. $500,000. The guy says, wow, $500,000. I've always wanted to be in this position. I'm giving 20%. He gives away $100,000. God says, I've been looking for you for a long time. I've been looking for a guy like you for a long time who's willing to give away that kind of money. The next year, he gives him $1 million. Guy gives away $200,000. Next year, God gives him, says, wow, that's great. $2 million for you. Guy says, $2 million, let's see. 400,000, ooh, 400,000, a lot of money. 400,000, you know, I think I'll give away 200. I'll give away 10%. I'll give away 200,000. He goes, nah, bad. So the guy says, well, the next year you're only getting $800,000. I got to cut you back. He gets 800,000. I had a bad year. I can't even give away 10%. 800,000. I should have such a bad year. So I had a bad year. You know, I'm giving away 7%. God says, no. Cuts them down to 400,000. You understand? That's the way it works. The more you give, you want to salt your money, decrease it. Because then you're showing God that you are fulfilling his position properly as a distributor. That's what the Torah is teaching with the Shulchan. The Shulchan represents prosperity, and that we have to make our home livatim levadim. Now, there's an interesting Mishnah in Pirkei Avos that says, Yihu aniyim b'nei veisecha. Poor shall be members of your home. It's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos in the first paragraph. Sixth Mishnah. Yihu aniyim b'nei veisecha. The poor shall be members of your home. What does that mean? What does this statement mean? The poor shall be the members of your home.
You should treat the poor as if they were.
Excellent. So very good. That means that not only you should give to the poor, you have to give to the poor and make them feel that they're as important as anybody else who comes into your home. A poor man comes into the home, you know, they're used to being kicked around. Poor man comes in, you treat the poor man like you treat anybody else. When you have noble guests, it's always good, it's always fun to have the upbeat guests, the high caliber people. What about the poor guy? A guy may not smell so good, he doesn't bathe. They're always bring him into your home. Treat the poor man as a member of your home. That's what it means, levatim levadim. Let him be a member. A very difficult thing, by the way. Very difficult thing. Levatim levadim. It should be a home for the lonely come into your house. Okay. Let's go on. One second. One more pasuk. 450 on page 450, the third line from the top. V'nasata al hashulchan lechem ponim lefanai tamid. You should put on the table the showbreads. Now, how does he translate them? He translates them as showbreads. But what would you translate lechem ponim as? If you translate literally, what would you translate it? Face breads, of course. Lechem panim should be face breads. And it's always translation. Why are they called face breads? There's an opinion in the Gemara. The way the breads were made, there was a special formula. They took the dough and they baked them. And just imagine the sides are even over here. The bread came out looking like, according to some opinions, it was more on an angle. But it was this weird dough-shaped thing that had the dough was able to stick up, straight up in the air on both sides. And so it was open in front, and therefore it's called the face bread. It had a face, lechem haponim. So there was one family in Yerushalayim that knew how to they knew how to bake the bread in a special way so that the dough stays up in the air. It was a special family formula. There was one family that knew the way to make the ketores when they burnt the incense, that the incense would rise straight up in the air. The smoke would rise straight up in the air, and the lechem haponim had a family that knew exactly how to make the lechem haponim. Okay, now, first of all, the Hebrew word panim. Panim means a face, right? One of the most ironic words, one of the most, not ironic, paradoxical words in the Hebrew language. Because panim means what? Lifnim means inside. Panim is your face, which is the most external part of a person's body. The thing that you look at is a person's face. I even noticed my grandchild, he's 7 months old, something like that. You look at a kid, the kid looks right at your face. Makes eye contact. Why? Who taught the kids to do that? From the earliest age, kids make eye contact. The human being is on his face. So why is the face called the panim, which means the inside? The answer is because of, what do you say, Usher? Of course. If a person's in a bad mood, it's written all over his face. You can say if a person's happy, it's written all over his face. Just before, I took a chair down off the couch, and as I put it on the floor, it hit the spot on my foot right where I had my gout. If you would have seen my face, you would have known what's going on the inside. I wasn't smiling. I put on, boom, right on the thing, boom, couldn't have been a better shot. So the panim means what's going on inside. Sometimes you can look at a person's face and you see this is a guy who is a low person. This is a guy who no matter what happens, I will never lend him money. He's just got evil, distrust, sneakiness written all over his face. Greed, ego. You can look at a person, see it on his face. You have another person, you look at it and say, this is a holy person. This is just a good person. Take a look at Rabbi Samet, and you take a look and say, yeah, I think I would trust this guy. Take a look at it's all written on the face. You can see it all it reflects on the face. So the lechem panim, which is called really the face spread, what's it got to do with poor people? What's this got to do with poor people? If the theme is poor people, poverty, and giving away tzedakah, what's this got to do with it? What's panim, lechem? Why is it called the lechem panim? The answer is, it reflects what's going on inside you. That means when you give tzedakah, what kind of face are you supposed to show the poor man? You have to have a happy face. If you give tzedakah with a grouchy face, it's better not to give.
The levels of tzedakah.
Right. And the lowest level, even if you give it begrudgingly, you don't even get to the time in tzedakah. If you give tzedakah to a poor man, you kind of toss him the coin. You do it in any disrespectful or insulting way, better not to give it at all. And the highest level is to be able, first of all, you have to comfort a poor person. Don't worry, things will be okay, it could change, that sort of thing. However you comfort a person, if he wants to be comforted. Sometimes if the comfort has to also be sincere. It has to be sincere. So the person says, well, it's easy for you to say, you're doing, But it's a very high level to comfort a person. The Gemara says, if you give tzedakah to a poor man, you get 6 brachas, and if you comfort him, you get 11 brachas, the Gemara says. And according to some, it means a combination of 17 altogether. Different opinions, whether it's 11 total or 11, 6 plus 11. Whatever it is, it's good. Whatever it is, it's good. Much better than walking away and not giving him anything. So you have to give the person, but you have to give it to him with a friendly face. And if you give it to him impatiently, and you give it to him in a way that you hurt his feelings, better not. That's why it's called lechem panim. Lefanai tamid. Always have that friendly face when you give to the poor people. Yeah.
How do you tell? I was approached by somebody asking me for money for his daughter's wedding. I could not tell if he was scamming.
Good question. So what nowadays what the halacha is somebody who approaches you, you give a minimal amount. Unless you know for a fact that they are legitimate, you give a minimum, give a shekel. That's all you're going to give a shekel. If they don't want it, if they throw it back at you, bend down, pay. Don't give less. You give a half a shekel. Anything less than that is already insulting. You give a guy 20 agorot, and nowadays it's already. Give a guy half a shekel, 20 agorot, 30 agorot if you're on the street, and you put it in a can where he can't see how much you're giving. Put it in a way that he can't see it, and it makes a lot of noise. But if a guy throws it back, you just pick it up, walk away. Don't do.
Give him 20 shekels. Goes in yeshiva, and he said, 20 shekels. Can you give me 100?
Walk away. Yeah, you don't have to increase it. I used to have a guy who came to my door all the time. No matter what I would give him, he wanted more. So eventually I just took a 20 shekel and I put it in an envelope. So when he came to the door, I'd give him the sealed envelope. So he's not going to be, what do you call it, enough to open it in my face. I'm going to close the door, they open it up, that's it.